Welcome back. Well, we do have Mr. Hassan Bello, the Executive Secretary of Nigeria Shippers Council. Thank you for coming on this morning. Well, the operations at the ports, we do know that there were some cases, unfortunately, of those who were positive, they came through the sea, and many thought that, wait a minute, how could that have happened? We thought that, you have all that area under control. What did we miss at that time, and how has that been corrected?
This has been corrected. Actually, the International Maritime Organization, IMO, has issued an advisory on how to conduct that. The port health is a very important institution as far as the situation is concerned at that time. So 14 days sailing must be observed before the ship berth on our port, especially if it's coming from high-risk ports where we have 1,000 cases of infection.
Was that before or after?
Yes, before.
Okay. Before the regulations?
After the regulations.
Okay.
So I think this has been streamlined now. We are having no cases, and the ones were actually at all installations, not general cargo. So there will not be, a lot of mix-up now as it was before. I think there is clarity, in what the NIMASA has issued a marine notice clarifying all this. There was also a meeting brokered by Nigerian Shippers Council with NIMASA and the shipping companies so that everybody will know what their stand is on this.
So what about the operations? How are you implementing the concept of social distancing?
Yes, it is very important. The responsibility is for all of us. It is a delicate balance. The most important thing, imperative, is to stop the contagion, to stop, the spread of this virus. That is the imperative. So workers going to the port must at least be screened. For us, you have to have something to do at the port before you are there. We have buses and we check the papers. Do you really have something to do at the port? And that is very important. That's the first stage. On entering the terminals, and I've been to many terminals, there are all these health instructions are really been religiously carried out. And I'm really impressed that we maintain social distancing, the sanitization. The port is a cluster. There must be a huddle or somehow, and you have to have gears to protect yourself, especially the dock workers who go and offload cargo. Special gears are provided. And I think everything is done according to what the health authorities have prescribed.
On the one hand is the instructions, the guidelines, and all of that. On the other hand is compliance by your men.
Yeah.
How do you enforce that when you are not there?
Well, we comply is the two. Before you can't come to the port unless you have something to do. And we look at the documents. Do you have a TDO? Do you have a DO?
I mean, on the one hand, okay, so you've said they have to have access.
Yes.
After getting access.
Yes, after the terminals take over. And we have, emphasized this to the terminals. That is very important. They are aware of that. The terminals have rudimentary safety regulations even before now. So they just, up it now. So I think we are actually doing something reasonable within the circumstances.
Okay. It's also interesting to know that there are people in our environment who still don't believe in this. Have you had any such situation?
I don't think so. The people at the ports are very educated. They are conscious of that. It's a hazardous job, more so now that we have this pandemic with us.
Okay.
I know that the government, they said that they were going to, there are lots of restrictions, even for items coming in. You will only clear essential cargo.
Yes.
What do you classify?
Essential cargo priority is given to essential cargo. We're talking about medicine, pharmaceuticals, we're talking about raw materials for factories, and food, for food security. It's important that the economy does not grind to a halt. There must be a window. But this must be done in accordance with health guidelines.
But the thing about that is this. Yes, you clear essential cargo, because normally, when the ports are operating normally, we know it's a nightmare to get your materials out of the ports.
Yes.
But now that you're clearing essential cargo, means there will be backlog, huge ones. How are you going to, how is that going to...
Not necessarily. If you know there have been some slowdown on cargo coming because of disruption internationally. of the logistic chain. Production has not been going on. Our trade with China, 50%, and this has been disrupted, and other routes also. So we may have a manageable thing to handle. And that's why we have opened up the port to work throughout this holiday. That is Friday through Monday, so that we could, in fact, ease the congestions even further.
I was going to ask you about, the backlog before the embargo came, because now you only clear essential, goods and all of that. How about those that are not essential? They remain on the high seas?
No. They're essential. It's just the priority given. All goods are cleared, but we have to give priority to.
How about petroleum products?
Yes, petroleum is another thing altogether. The liquid cargo is also been cleared.
But when you say 50% China,
Yeah.
has it always been the case?
Yes, it's not the case with containers. Most of our products, containerized cargo. That's the trade pattern, with China. Manufactured goods, television, and also vehicles, mostly with China. But even more important, the export. Exports are, our priority to see that these exports are also, given a window for our exportation of this, of commodities from Nigeria.
Because that's a huge one. I mean, we're trying to extricate ourselves from being held down by any of these Western countries.
Yeah.
But now you just highlighted that, look, we still have a job of work to do.
Exactly. We have a lot of the import-dependent economy. It's not good. So this is the time for the diversification we have all been talking about. I'd rather see more export than import coming. Can we, in fact, finance it, actually? So we need to look at export, particularly. And that's why I'm calling for central bank, to come in directly and intervene in the transport system to strengthen the logistic chain, make it possible for us to export products.
How? What do you want them to do?
There is access to finance. There is access to market. There is strengthening of the chain. That is, we have dry ports. They are at the footstep of all agricultural belts in Nigeria. So make dry ports export centers.
So why does it have to be CBN, not the DMBs?
Well, it doesn't matter. We just need a kind of intervention. And I think a conscious effort should be made to look at this. This is a source of diversification. In fact, the transport system, as you know, could be the second then besides oil. After all, even the oil revenues depend on transport. So it is very important we have a conscious, concerted look at the transport system and intervene directly.
Do you have any special arrangement for such investments?
Well, we have. It's done in a PPP basis. For example, Nigeria Shippers Council is having the dry ports all over. PPP, let the private sector come. The Lekki Deep Seaport is going to be a game changer, and there is a massive participation of the private sector. So the private sector must take lead in modern transport infrastructure. And I think this is what we are leading.
Well, there have been a lot of talk about, now that you mentioned the Lekki port, there's been a lot of talk about congestion at the ports. Is there anything
The congestion is because of access to the port more than the volumes. And the access we have depended on one mode of transport, which is the road, and which is a disaster. We have to look at other modes of transport. A port must be linked with, many modes, if you like, rail, road, inland waterways, even the pipelines are mode of transportation. So that's why a modern port must have these. The federal government has now made it an issue that all ports must be linked with rail. Rail, evacuates cargo seamlessly, massively, and also at reasonable cost.
How far away are we from achieving that?
Yes, we almost achieve it in this quarter, but for the disruption we're experiencing now. Again, it's the Chinese doing that, and you will expect typically to happen.
What do we do to make sure that
coming back to your
get out of this?
to your something? But I think that's what the Lekki Seaport is a very, very important infrastructure.
Okay.
200,000 jobs to be created, and the Lagos state government, federal government, and of course private investment. It is a deep seaport, accommodating very large ships, so we'll have the economies of scale, and we could build a hub around that so that we distribute it to other countries.
Many shippers always accuse the country of not doing enough to strengthen other areas and ensure that we decongest Lagos ports. What's going on with that?
Yes, eastern ports, they could be used to decongest Lagos port. But it is the shipper. He has the power to say, this is where my goods or my cargo.
What if your organization says, look, we need to decentralize because of this?
There is, in fact, what you do is to incentivize people to go to those ports. And Nigerian Ports Authority has done so. All its charges have been reduced to about 30%. But then what is even more important is the connectivity. The eastern ports, if you drop your cargo in Calabar, how will they get to Maiduguri, which is linearly the closer? You need to have the roads and the rail also. So it's not a port rather than a distribution center. You need to have interland connection to serve the port.
I mean, you would also remember how prominent the Port Harcourt, the Calabar port was back in time. That was an established system already with all its connectivity and all of that. Couldn't that be done
It has
faster?
been done now. It's been restored slowly.
Okay.
The Nigerian Ports Authority working seriously to see that Calabar, has restored its past glory. Well, we have ports, Port Harcourt, 2 ports, even a container terminal there. And all these are functioning very well.
People will be concerned with the pace of work, even before this, disruption that you mentioned. People have been concerned with the slow pace of this whole process. Is it because of the investment volume?
Yeah, well, we have what I call primitive clearance system. It's so primitive and archaic that it will not work. Nigerian custom is at the heart of port operations, especially clearance of system. And here we have, for some reasons, 100% physical examination.
But they've talked about this open single window for a
single
long
window
time. What's
will
happening?
come and solve the problem, but we need scanners or other similar. It takes 5 minutes for a container to be passed through scanner. It takes 5 hours for physical examination. But the customer are on top of it, and they are going to provide the scanners very soon, and we'll have ease, of our clearance process.
When you say very soon, how soon is
Yes,
that?
how soon now I cannot say because of the disruption that we are having.
Now,
But extremely very soon. They are extremely serious about
You
this.
talked about ease now, and it reminds me of ease of doing business.
Ease of doing business.
I also understand that there were some moves made at the ports to ease, to reduce the protocol, the bureaucracy, and all of that. How well has that worked?
Yes, that is what he's talking about, national single window. It's transparent, it is fast, it is technology-based. You need to automate the port. And we have seen what we are doing now. I think we have learned a lesson. The transactions, must be on platforms, electronical, platforms. And we need to step up and clear cargo as soon as it comes. We're having 18 days now, 18 days dual time of cargo. This is not even within the regional average. We need to reduce it to 10, 7 days, and then we take it from there. But automation, of the port is imperative. It's very important.
Now, you've talked about the automation of the ports and in this single window thing, and this period, some would argue, gives us certain opportunities to rework some things, to review some processes. What are those lessons?
This is what is giving us opportunity. For example, the ports don't work on weekends. Now we are going to work throughout this weekend, and we'll see. Rail is being used to evacuate cargo. Right now, yesterday, some containers were moved by rail. And so combination of these, will make us into retrospection and see how we can, make this thing better. But we cannot, continue like this. The international trade needs technology. And so our port processes and procedures must be technologically driven.
But for some of those on ground there, in that report, they talked about the challenges they're facing with the banks. They say that's not operational and it's giving them a huge challenge.
Yes.
Has that changed?
We have actually convinced many banks to open in Apapa. Otherwise, there will not be any bank at all. And you need the bank for transaction, at least payment of custom duty. We are bringing the banks. We have about 4 operational, and more will come in.
There was also that talk about operators who didn't have holding bay. How they were causing a lot of disruptions in that process. Has that been addressed now?
Yes, it must be addressed because, the container return or the container regime is giving us a lot of headache. Containers are property of the shipping companies. And they must be returned within a time. of which there is a deposit. If it is not returned, then you forfeit, your deposit. But how is it possible? It's impracticable with the road clogged, with the gridlock, for you to return within the specified time.
Okay.
What we are thinking is we have to be structured ourselves, the freight forwarders, because not all, like Nestle, they don't pay deposit because everybody knows where Nestle is. They have a system, they are structured. But some of our freight forwarders are not. They don't have, addresses. And when they take this asset, they don't return. So we are even thinking of bringing the insurance company, into this so that will ease. A lot of money for that deposit is not really
Because
necessary.
I was going to ask if you're going to have a process wherein all of the relevant stakeholders in that sector come together
Yes.
and address those problems holistically so that it's not a nightmare for
Exactly.
anybody who wants to do
And-
business
and
in the ports.
That's true, and that's what we need. The synergy is very important. It's layers and layers of interest. Stakeholders, myriad of stakeholders. So it's important that we have one platform, one government, of doing things. That I'm talking about the operators now, government agencies at the port must all come together. And so there is very important for us to have that synergy. And that's what Shippers Council is pursuing at this moment.
Because, part of the complaint too at that time was remember when customs was getting to the roads, impounding people's cars, and then people thought, look, wait a minute, how is that my problem? I did all I was supposed to do. So customs should have checked with all of those agencies, but they told me my document was correct. So if this were in place, this should have been addressed. Don't you think so?
No, it will have been. Custom has reduced the multiple checkpoints. At least we have been able to discuss. Custom is very, very receptive to ideas. I was always in touch with the high command of the custom. And this had been reduced substantially so that we have flow of cargo. And I think if we had come together, working in synergy, I've been with the customs about 2 or 3 weeks to look at this. Custom are providing staff now for this weekend evacuation of cargo. The only constraint is people must practice what has been prescribed by the national or health authorities.
Let me ask you this. How did we get here? How did we get to the point where there are so many trucks on the major highways?
It's lack of planning, generally.
And for how long did this
Yes,
take?
it's lack of
there was a
planning.
time there was no traffic on Apapa.
Exactly, but the population was such. How would you not anticipate that 2.5% growth of population prescribed by the United Nations will know that this is the population will grow, that more cargo will come. Our purchasing power has changed. Our consumption patterns have also changed. We have a vibrant middle class and so on and so forth. We should have predicted that. And then you have the same mode of evacuation. It's not possible. The population is growing. The cargo throughput is growing. And so you need to open up.
So whose task is this planning that you talked
The planning is for the country, everybody. Everybody must plan.
about? Specifically, please.
Everybody must plan. The port authority must plan. The cities must plan. But we have loose, for example, Apapa should be owned by the Nigerian Ports Authority. All of it. But here you find, even a kiosk you put in Apapa, you have to have the permission of the Nigerian Ports Authority. But is that what happens? No, that's not what happens. So what we have is lack of planning. But I think we have a port plan. We are taking it in our strides, and I think all these issues will be addressed.
When you said we do 50% of the trade with China,
Yeah.
China, again, is the one building some of those key infrastructure. And China, look, they could hold us ransom at some point in time. Now, looking at all of this, in terms of what about the data that you have about our export details, not just the import? How are we faring in that regard?
Yes, export has risen, actually, but we can do more. We need more exports. But even the ports were, configured for imports because at a time when we never knew we could do that. And now that's why we're looking at Lekki so that we could provide, export facilities. It's the mentality at that time. With the concession of the ports, nobody was thought of export. But export is the savior of this country. We have to export or we perish.
And when you say that this sector can actually be the second gross earner for this country, and that means it could overtake agriculture.
Of course,
the potential is there.
It could, because it makes for the transportation drives the economy. Transportation employs a lot of people, and it builds modern infrastructure for the economy to thrive. So it's the mother of the economy. So it's cool.
Are we, from what you've seen, are we doing anything? Do we realize that? How far away
Oh, we have.
are we
There's
from
that-
achieving this?
That realization is there, and the Ministry of Transport or Transportation is keen and aware of that. So many things are happening, including the rail. You know, that rail revolution that is going on now is also, it will change the way we do things, because rail, it's important to support export. That's what we should do. Make, export from grassroots up to the ports, where the ships will be waiting, and we grade these things, the export, and off they go. It will boost, even our unity. It depends on rail. We are more united when the rail was running, but when the rail was not, everybody went to his cocoon. Yeah.
So I remember the Export Promotion Council at some point say something along the line of the difficulty of being able to export things because of some barcoding and all of that, for our products. Why is that difficult for people?
We need to come together and also streamline the processes and procedures. Some are tedious and they are anti-export. So we have to come and look at these things. It's lack of electronic platform, actually. Once you have that, one will be able to transact business without much hassle. And all these things are very, very important, in the export. Exports are foreign markets. You must have constant supply, to those markets. We can export banana or even apple, to Britain. It's 5 hours. Where they get the banana, KwaZulu-Natal, it's 11 hours by flight. So we have already an advantage of that. But these things must be, as I said again, consciously, deliberately be looked at.
Then that also brings up the question of how well educated are people who wants to export about these things.
They are educated. The export, I've seen them. We always talk.
The ones that
Yes.
but there are many others who
There are
just from
companies.
you said we can do more.
We can do more.
Perhaps that also speaks to those who may not have the kind of information that they need.
Yes, but we can actually do more. We bring people together. They know where the issue pinches, so they will tell us what to do. But we can summarize what it is. We need to have access to finance. Okay, we need to look at agricultural clusters, know what fertilizer will apply, which is acceptable. We have ginger, for example, the best in the world, need not to be mixed from Kaduna and environs. From Kaduna dry port, it's been exported to Mexico. We have ginger. Many of these projects, but what we need is even for them to be processed. We can't be, we have to add value, then, export.
So 2 things before we go. One, demurrage charges. People complain that, look, this is the fear of that demurrage is the beginning of wisdom, if you know how to coordinate yourself. And then talk to us about that first before you tell us about your post-COVID plans.
Yes, we have been talking about demurrage. Demurrage is actually what is chargeable. But we have a situation now, disruption. Parties cannot perform reasonably, their obligations. For example, no public transport. Some of the banks are not working. So which means there's impracticability or impossibility. And then we have to look at it and say, okay, maybe we have, the contract is frustrated. And so what are the remedies? But I don't want to go through that legal way, because the legal way is intricate. Who will declare force majeure? Who are the parties to the contract? Freight forwarders, for example, are not parties to contract. Okay, it's the shippers, the consignees who are. So it is important we mediate. We have been through this during the last general strike. Okay, we mediated, shipping companies and consignees, and a rebate was given. Of course, you can make some regulatory declaration, which will go into the sanctity of contract and override it. But it is I can't imagine a harder task, honestly. Okay. So it is an intricate balance. We have to look at it holistically.
And your post-COVID plans?
Post-COVID, we have to strengthen our system. Okay, we have to work with an automated port system and processes. where one needs not to go to the port to clear one's cargo.
Yeah, where FOU doesn't need to stop you just when you leave the port and then pounce on you. So once they regulate all that, I think everybody will be a lot happier.
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time, Hassan Bello, Executive Secretary of Nigerian Shippers Council. All the best.
Thank you very much.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.